Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to the Achieve Your Dream Summit. I am very, very excited about our next guest. I have heard Miss Norma speak. I have seen her speak on several occasions, and I have always learned things. I've always been mesmerized, literally mesmerized by what she has to say, because she has a unique perspective. She talks about authenticity. If you have no idea what that means, you will know here pretty soon. And I'm going to read you a little bit about this wonderful lady. Her name is Norma Hollis. She's a change agent who impacts the world in multiple ways. She writes programs for human development around the theme of authenticity and turns them into training processes to deepen self-awareness and expand consciousness. Norma and her programs are catalysts for people who are open to gaining new perspectives about self, life, and living. She was the first Black woman to own a speaker bureau for Black speakers, and she continues to help people find, live, and share their authentic voice. She is a thought leader for multiple organizations and has an international presence in both the professional speaking and professional coaching industries. Norma loves working with people who are committed to making a positive difference in the world. And since the theme here is Achieve Your Dream, I want to ask Norma a quick question, and you're going to love this. All of it, you're going to love this. Miss Norma Hollis,
yes.
What were you born to do?
Well, Mr. Rick Stewart, I was born to help people connect with their authentic self, people all over the planet, to be the person that they were born to be. That's what I was born to do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit more about that. In fact, let me hit you with the next question, because you'll be able to really expand on this. How did you get there?
Well, now that's been an interesting journey. And my journey really has been about listening to my inner voice, listening to the voice that speaks within me. And that's what led me to develop my whole authenticity process. I remember when I was in school as a youngster, everybody asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? When you grow up, what do you want to be? And my answer was always, I don't know, God hasn't told me yet. So I was just, I knew I had something to do, and I knew that it was kind of important. I felt it. I had no idea what it was. I just really figured it out really in the last 20 years, even though I've been doing it for a long time, because it's so original. I mean, what is authenticity anyway? And why is it important? And why is it that this time of society that I'm doing authenticity is so important in the world? And how did that timing come to be? And how did it took me 30 years to create my system, my program, and 12 years to figure out what it was and what to do with it. And then another few years to get it out there in the world, which is where I'm at now, and getting it in the world in multiple places. So the process was really, it was counter to what they teach you. What they teach you is when you get that question as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're supposed to have an answer, and you're supposed to follow it, you know. So most kids have 2 or 3 answers. They have, who knows? Who knows? What I've learned since then, that you don't really know who you are until you're about 30 years old. Because when you're going at your parents' house, you're who your parents view of who you are. You're
right.
Living in different values. But when you get in your 20s, you start to actually see the world and see all the different ways that people live and exist, and begin to see yourself in different ways. And it takes a while to adjust to that. So how can you ever expect to understand and to believe what you're going to do in the world when you go to college and you don't even know who you are yet? So everybody I know that went to college and has been in the workforce for 20, 30, 40 years is not doing what they went to college for. So most people. So it's just interesting how society sets us up for these things.
That's one of the reasons why I developed Strategy for Destiny. What were you born to do? Is because the stats show that over 70% of people are not in a job that has anything to do with their college degree, and over 70% of them are miserable.
That's why they're not engaged. Exactly. That's the same
not
stat.
Engaged. That is a good perspective. I got to ask you, when did the term authenticity first enter your stream of consciousness?
Well, in terms of my program or my work being identified as authenticity, that was probably around 2000. So 20 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. That was when I owned the speaker bureau. I was the first Black woman, as you mentioned in my bio, to own a bureau for Black speakers. And in the process, I learned a lot about people. So my education, my degree is in child and family life sciences. So I spent my first career directing preschool programs, most notably large Head Start programs in Michigan and California. And that's when I learned about human nature and about human development. And then when I had my speaker bureau, well, I saw all these children, in the preschools, coming into the classroom, just living so freely and happy to be alive and glad to be in. And then I met these speakers when I had my bureau who talked about how they lost themselves in the corporate world for 10 to 20 or 30 years, and how they don't know who they are anymore, and they want to be authentic, and they want to speak, they want to talk about their journey and help other people. And so what's that gap? What happens in that gap between preschool and when they realize that they weren't living their dream, as you say, achieving their dream? And so that's the part that I help people to reconnect with, to come back to who they are. People miss that. They miss that authenticity of who they are. So anyway, as I was working on all this, I had one of my employees who actually ended up being like a coach to me. And he says, "You're all about authenticity. It's not just empowerment. It's not this." He says, "Your authenticity." And then I had this grid. I called this grid the golden grid at the time. And that's when I changed it to the authenticity grid and changed my branding to authenticity, and began to see that really was my brand. As I talked to speakers, I could realize first for myself, as far as the platform of being authenticity, I could talk about authenticity with children and raising authentic children because of my background in early childhood. I could talk about being authentic speakers because I had the bureau, and I was moving toward just talking about authentic leadership, which is what I'm doing now. But I could see that identity impacted my past, my present, and my future. So that was truly my identity, and I've had that for over 20 years. So that it kind of came and it stuck and it stayed. So that's what I did.
I am so thrilled that the older I get, the more thrilled I am meeting and talking with and getting to know people like you, and specifically you, because there's so many facets. This piece, this puzzle piece, and it fits into what you have up behind you there.
Yes.
And all of that you teach. It's too bad we're not way back in biblical times when we lived like 600, 700, 800 years, and we can really share a lot with a lot of people. But I'm thrilled that you're getting this down and teaching people what this is all about on a much broader scale, because one to one, we're not hitting enough people.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
We need to be out there. Okay, now let me ask, how does your business fit into your dream?
Well, I've done this as a passion, as an assignment, as a mission. Like I said, God didn't tell me what I was supposed to do. I just did it. I didn't know what it was. And I thought all I had to do was create it. And then whatever magic was around it would happen. And it was happening. But then I realized it wasn't happening much and won't happen much unless it gets marketed. Well, therein lied another problem, because most marketers didn't have the time or the depth to understand what I was marketing. I mean, well, I'm not surprised because I didn't know either. I did it, but I didn't even know what it was or what it was supposed to. It took me years to figure out how best to do this. But I also realized along the way that a lot of entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs because they come to the planet clear that they have something to do. And the only way to do it is to do it on your own as an entrepreneur. You certainly can't do it. Well, it's very hard to do it working a 9-to-5 job. In my view, 9-to-5 job got in the way of my mission. So I abandoned 9-to-5 jobs a long time ago. I figured out we'll just make it work, and that's what's happened. So it's just really important to do what your heart says to do, and that's what I did. That's what I've done. I didn't know where it would lead. I just did it with faith and follow the voice inside. And so that's what I teach, how to follow the voice inside, because it's what someone said recently, the designer, rather than the creator, the designer. Who designed you? You were designed. You were all uniquely designed. Who designed you? Who's your designer? Mm-hmm. And how are you following the design that was structured for you? And what I found in doing this grid that I had was really a step in me understanding me. I was 28 years old and realized I did everything my parents had say to do. I had the husband, the cars, the house, all that great stuff, and I was miserable. And I didn't know what to do. I was, and I married wrong at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing, in the wrong career with the wrong person. I mean, just on and on and on and on.
Phew.
But that's what happens. We grow up being, in many cases, being our parents' version of who they think we should be. My parents thought that for a Black woman in America, the safe thing to do would be to marry a doctor, a dentist, or a lawyer, take care of you. Well, I'm just not the take care of type. So
That's amazing. That's amazing.
yeah, so I had to journey out on my own to figure out who am I. And 30 years later, I had this grid. I first found 9 energies in me, and I made the same design with an animal in each box to identify my individual personality so I could understand myself. And over the course of time, of 30 years of researching all of it and going deeper and deeper, and then testing it with the speakers that were in my bureau many years ago, I learned I had something that really helped people understand themselves. And so that's how it turned into a business, because I could not continue doing it unless I found a way to make money. And it took then 12 years of studying marketing. And one thing that I'm real clear of is that those of us who are the creative designers are not the best marketers. And therefore, we need marketing people on our team. Yes, I mean, everybody I know that's creative, the only people that I've met along the way who are very successful financially and are creative and creative stuff, whether speakers or coaches or whatever, they have a marketing partner. They have somewhere in their cadre of people that's supporting them, somebody is a master at marketing and is making that marketing happen. Without that, you just, no matter how great your stuff is, it's very, very hard. If you do it organically, you got to live that 700-800 years you talked about. You can't do it every weekend. It takes a long time. So I've learned marketing, and now I have come to the point of my own authenticity. And this is one of my definitions of when you have achieved authenticity, is when the unseen supporters and the tangible supporters are interconnected and synchronicities happen frequently. The law of attraction happens in synchronicities. Now, when I say unseen supporters, I'm talking about the universe, the spirit, and however you call the designer and all the designer's partners. So however they do what they do, there is a connection there. We have deja vu all the time. We know we have purpose. We have these gut feelings. We have this stuff that happens around us and within us through our 5 senses and other ways. And that's those unseen supporters communicating, connecting with us. And when we can get those unseen supporters to connect with the tangible things that we do in the world, and they work in concert, and really we kind of give up some of it to be more of the servant of the designer, then that's when magic happens. Magic happens and happens and happens and happens. And then that's when the worry goes away. You don't worry because you know that you're on the path with the universe. You're working with the universe. You're working towards your best good. You're being the person you were born to be, in alignment with the other positive energies around you. And if more of us could do that, we'd have a whole different world. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, I just grabbed one of your phrases, make worry go away. My goodness. Yeah. We're a universe of worriers.
Well, we're taught to worry. We're taught very early to
yes,
worry.
We are. Not to be warriors, but to be worriers.
Yeah, right, exactly. And we pick it up. It's an easy habit to pick up. And some of us never ever let go of it. But the hard paths are letting go of the things that have become habit and tweaking them. And what I recommend to people is tweaking things one small thing at a time. And after a while, you have transformation. So it's not just shift everything all at once. That's asking way too much. Like saying lose 100 pounds next month. That's asking too much. It's too much. You lose a pound at a time. And eventually you have 100 of them that go away. So you just tweak a small thing at a time. Just a small thing, not the big things, but start with the small things. And pretty soon you look up and they become big things. And you transform to something different or someone different.
Well, that one bite at a time, you finally ate the whole elephant.
How about that? It tastes a lot better when you can savor it like that.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little A1 sauce would help. All right. Well, I'm through, as I'm sure you are. getting to know Miss Norma a little bit more here, in fact, a whole lot more, and getting inside of that mind of yours, that fertile brain of yours. I know that you have a title to what you're bringing to us today, and we have plenty of time for you to expound on that some. I'll just let you go.
Well, my title is Turning Confusion and Fear into Confidence and Trust.
Wow.
And what that really means is, we all go through confusion and fear. It's a part of life. It's in fact a part of what we're taught. One of the phrases that I use a lot now is a manufactured life, because most of us live manufactured lives with confusion and fear, because we're taught.
I'm writing it down. Yeah.
We're taught, we are programmed, you're programmed to believe that, first of all, that there's Cinderella and Santa Claus and all those things. And then the reality comes and you realize that those things are not true. And then you realize almost everything else you were told as a child is not true. There's no Cinderella, there's no magic castle, there's no fantasy island. It's all the reality that we all have to deal with as humans.
There is a tooth fairy though, isn't there? Isn't there a tooth fairy?
Yeah, it's called Daddy.
Oh yeah, that part. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Santa or mommy, whatever the case might be, or grandma or somebody else. But there are no flying horses, no unicorns, they only exist in our mind. So it's up to us to choose how we want to live our lives. Once the reality hits that, we're all going to die, and that, none of those things, the fairy tales really exist. They're just not really real. And then what's left? So what do you have to dream about? So what you have to dream about is really who you can be and how you can be on the planet. And that has a lot to do with really understanding yourself. The research on self-awareness says that it is one of the most valuable things you can have. So for students, for example, students who are more aware of themselves do much better in school. They have more confidence. Then when you think about it, where is it in the world that self-awareness is taught? It's not taught in schools.
No.
It's not taught in churches.
No.
Churches teach you their religious doctrine. Mm-hmm. Schools teach you how to get a job, how to be employable. Nowhere to teach you how to deal with your emotions, how to know what your potential is, to know what your gifts and talents are, how to interpret the messages that come to your inner voice, because we all get them all the time.
Yes.
We just always recognize them. How do you learn how to read them and interpret them? How do you learn to really decipher between your quality and your quantity network? How do you know, and how do you learn how to discern and judge people who are for your best interests and those who are not, other than the hard way? Most people learn self-awareness through the bullies on the street, and we're talking about elementary and junior high school and high school, which are very difficult to get through when you really go back and look about it, think about it. But, and then we're expected by the time we're out of high school to make a decision about the rest of our life, what we're going to do. And we're told that, the best age for having babies is in your 20s. Well, that's also the best age to get into debt for life. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, and that you talk about creating a path for your life. That's how you get off your authenticity, when you give your life away too quickly. And giving them away is following the manufactured life of doing what society would have you do. Have babies early as possible, because that disrupts the whole possibility of you actually being the person you were born to be. Because you have to now worry every week, every day about feeding the babies and getting the rent paid, making sure you got someplace to live. It's hard enough to do it just for yourself.
It is.
But you got to do it for yourself and for a child and for more children. It's not easy, and it's not a Cinderella story at all. And I love for young people to hear this and to have the conversation. I had a conversation with a 30-year-old and a 36-year-old on Christmas Day, and it was very, very, very much aware. And one statement that they made that I had never thought about. The 36-year-old was saying how there was a big difference, an information gap between him and the 30-year-old. Because the 30-year-old was actually born with a computer in his face, has easier access to information and the knowledge than the 36-year-old who learned it after the fact. Like some of us older ones did. Still, they were younger, but they didn't have it thrust in their face at an early age where that's all they knew. But the information gap, he was saying the 30-year-old was more informed than he was being 6 years older in just that short period of time. So, part of that I say is because when parents talk about teaching their child to be something, in my generation, it was parents said, well, you should get into computers because that's where the money's going to be. So the criteria for selecting careers is frequently the money and not the skill. And I'm suggesting, particularly with my experience with the preschool children and directing preschool programs and seeing how that transition when people are in corporate America for a few years, how important it is to really be raised by your gifts. Because who can predict what the world's going to be like in 30 years when today's babies are out there in the workforce? So how can you tell that child what the best job would be for that child? I think another approach is to help the child understand what their natural gifts and talents are, because their designer designed them for something. Like you asked a question at the very beginning, what's your purpose? Why are you here? Mm-hmm. And which implies that you believe that we all have a purpose. And for those who are listening to the show, it implies that they probably believe that as well, which I do as well. Mm-hmm. So taking it a little deeper, where does it come from and what do you do with it? How do you work it? Now, I'm going to give another piece of advice for those that are young and have young children or young grandchildren. So in my background is early childhood, and I have spent a lot of time in the area of children's spirituality. So I like to advise to parents that, and now it's easy with the phones that we have now that are cameras, to record these babies, particularly between the ages of 2 and 4. Mm-hmm. Because between 2 and 4 is when you can get glimpses of their purpose and why they are here. So, as I have said before, I've been chastised for saying this, but if you believe there is life after death, then perhaps you can also believe that there is life before birth. Because if you have purpose, where's the consciousness that receives that, if it's not a life before birth? Mm-hmm. So if there's a life before birth, you were likely advised in that life before birth of what your purpose is. Why else would you not say when you get here that, what is my purpose? Mm-hmm. So when a child is 2 years old and is first learning to speak, if you listen carefully, you may hear them tell you about their purpose. You might even ask them and they may tell you. And they'll talk about it freely until they're about 4-ish. At 4 is when they start to learn how to read. And learning how to read takes you to the other side of the brain and cuts off or I won't say cut it off, but reduces the creativity that you were born with that allows you to attain the memories of before birth. Some people are able to retain it. Most people do not. And I like to encourage parents not to rush to teach children to read. The research, now I have not read the research lately, but when I was in college, a long time ago, I know, but nonetheless, I don't think humans have changed so much from the fact that the research says that it doesn't really matter that much what age a child starts to read, they all catch up eventually. So it's and really what is the purpose? It's my belief that if a child understands their spirit and their purpose, they're far better off than if they just understand the academic side of the world. Because it's through their heart that they have the relationship, that they build the intimacy, that they build the empathy, that they build on themselves, that they even learn their own self-awareness, which again makes them stronger and then makes them stronger leaders. Research also shows that leaders who are self-aware are more vulnerable and more effective leaders and build more engaging teams. So everywhere you look, the data shows clearly that there's such value in self-awareness and self-knowledge, in knowing oneself and accepting oneself and being oneself and accepting your gifts and talents and developing your gifts and talents and using your gifts and talents in the world. There are about 1,000 different jobs in the world. So once you know your gifts and talents, you're going to fit in some, and there are new ones popping up all the time, especially with the artificial intelligence and so much things going on in the world. So everybody has a place, but your place is lived and your life is lived far more meaningfully, happier and healthier when you're living it, doing what you enjoy, not just what brings you income.
Woo! Wow.
You asked me.
I did. And I just want to throw in that, piggybacking on a lot of that you've said, I'm not going to tell people how old I am because I am old, but for over 35 years, I've been helping people one-to-one. And this core strategy for destiny is allowing more people, like you say, the readers. I love being able to give hope and purpose and direction to people who have none of the above, and in a lot of cases. And I ran the gamut at the mega church where I was on pastoral staff, when all of the other pastoral staff, when they got a tough case, somebody came into their office and they thought, oh, how am I going to handle this? Guess where they brought them? To my
Let's go see Rick, Pastor Rick.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I'm going to take you to see Pastor Rick. Yeah, yeah. But I learned so much. I really did, because I had to handle every situation, whether it was I'm going to commit suicide, I'm going to kill my father, I'm going to get a divorce, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm running. Oh, it was rough. It was rough. But now people have you to listen to. You know, they have me to listen to, and if they'll listen, they can get on track, on that track that, like you say, that inner voice. I like to call it, I'm not the originator of this, but a hole in your soul. And there's only so much that there are things that need to fill that hole. Sometimes it's one thing, sometimes it's two or three things. For me, it's three. And for you got so many hole fillers. You got them all over the place. Yeah. I know that you have a really fun gift for our listeners, and it's free. Don't you just love that word? It's free. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Miss Norma?
Yes, well, I certainly would like to invite your listeners to take my authenticity assessment. So I didn't get a chance to explain the grid behind me, but the assessment will begin to explain the grid. It is 9 questions, one for each of the boxes you see on the grid behind me, and that will begin to help you understand what's an assessment that help you look at yourself and make your own determination, subjective perspective of how authentically you're living your lives in these 9 different dimensions. Now, when you finish the assessment, and again, it is free, you're going to get an invitation to another free thing, which is a score interpretation 1-hour class that I give twice a month. And at that class, I will interpret your scores. When you get your score, people say, what's my score? What's my score? And you get 1 score, but I see 16 different scores. So I'm going to help you look at your scores in new ways and help you, as Rick said earlier, that I have kind of a different perspective on the world and on life and on living. And I will be sharing that with you, and how you can use the scores you get from the authenticity assessment as a way to, as a barometer to decide what to tweak in your life so you can become more authentic.
Mm-hmm. Whew. And I'm sure that has a value. What?
Yeah. The value is $197.
Okay.
When you come to the class, and then it raises the value to about $750, because the class is an hour class that normally is $497, and then a few other bonuses that go along with it. Okay. But yeah, so it's kind of the first step of really saying you're ready to embrace yourself. You're ready to really step a little deeper into understanding yourself, or to responding to that hole in the soul, as Rick said, or the knocking from the inside that's trying to get your attention.
Ooh, that's
good. Adjust your life a little bit to make a slight modification. Well, what we do is help you identify where to make that adjustment, and in some cases, how to make that adjustment. And we have a number of other opportunities that I'll share with you at the Score Interpretation Program. But the first thing to do is take the assessment at authenticityassessment.com. Wow. And I know you're going to put that up somewhere. And that's where you'll take the assessment. There's no charge. And I will see you on the other side at the score interpretation class.
Wow. 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 Well, someday I have a pipe dream. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
I want to be on the same stage with you.
And
There's,
we are right now.
yeah, like we are right now. And because I think people's heads will explode when they hear when you get cranking and they hear what you have to say. When I get cranking and they hear what I have to say, it's going to be like, okay, we're going to find our purpose. We're going to find our passion. We're going to start living that dream destiny and finally be full of joy and even at times be happy.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you want to do a study on that, joy and happiness are two different things.
Yes,
But
they are.
yes, they
Yes,
are.
they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
But
Yeah.
you can be in joy without necessarily being in a happy place.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little different. All right, I want to ask you a big question, and that is, and I'm gonna look at it because I don't want to get it wrong. When it comes to living your best life, what advice do you have for our viewers, our audience?
My best advice to you is to build a partnership, a relationship with that voice that speaks within you. Now, I'm going to give you a tip about how you can get started with that. So there's 3 questions that everyone asks themselves every single day. Those questions are, what time is it? What am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? We often ask those questions more than once. So I encourage you to just examine how you answer that question or those questions when you hear them. Do you answer them as a thought, as a memory? Is it in your gut? Is it rolling through your blood? Is it a vision? How do the answers come to you? And that's a clue for how your inner voice speaks to you. So I'll give you an example. About 20 years ago or so, I lost 30 pounds. And I was so delighted at that weight loss. I went to a resale shop, and orange is my branding color. This is before I picked orange as my color. I found this beautiful orange St. John suit, size 8, that fit me like a glove, and I looked so good in it. Yes, I did. I love that suit. I still have that suit.
Okay.
Whenever I want to feel like that, I put on that jacket. Even though it is tattered, it will not even get clean anymore. But it still gives me that feeling. And then as I go through life, when I have that feeling, which comes every now and then, I stop and pay attention because I recognize that's that voice speaking to me, especially when it comes kind of out of the blue or suddenly, unexpectedly. Gets my attention. But I've learned that that's how that voice speaks to me. So I'm suggesting to you to do the same thing, to take those 3 questions that you ask every day. What time is it? What am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? And just examine how you answer them. And that's a clue for the way that your inner voice speaks to you. And then the more you speak to that inner voice, the more connection you build. And I've got so much more to share with you, but just take the assessment and get on my list and see a number of the activities that we have going on. And we'll teach you even more.
Woo! Well, is there anything else you want to throw out there? Anything else? We've got just a few minutes left here. Is there and any more words? I'm ready to explode right now. There is steam literally coming out of my ears. I've learned a lot, as always, from Miss.
Well, I'll give you a little more steam. How about that? One more steam. So another way to connect with your voice is something I did when I was 8 years old. When I was 8, I had a lot of pain in my ear and for ear aches and stuff. And my parents didn't really get the level of pain I was in. And so these voices started speaking to me. And I would say to the voices, okay, if you're the voice I should listen to, prove it to me. And let somebody walk by me with the red socks. And let someone mention the word elephant in the conversation. And if that happens the next week, maybe I'll believe it. And sure enough, it happened. Yeah. And then I kept doing it with a different command for the next 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. And it always showed up. And by that time, the voice said, do you believe me now? Do you believe me? I said, yes. So I've had that connection all my life. And to show you that, in 2016, a friend came to visit me on Thanksgiving Day, and he walked in, he had on red socks. I said, look at that. I said, well, if in the next week, I see if someone mentions the word elephant, then I'll understand the meaning means whatever I was doing at the time. Well, about 4 days later, I heard elephant as an answer on Family Feud. I said,
Oh.
well, yeah, but it's not really that personal, But then 7 days, the next Thursday, I went to a friend's seminar. And in her seminar, she talked about how we limit ourselves by our sphere of awareness. And she talked about the elephant and how if you tie an elephant's tail to a stake, he'll go in circles and will never really leave the circles of his life like that. I said, there it is. But the really deep thing, Rick, was in 2019, the last event that I had before COVID. I was trying to find something in my box of orange things. The orange is my branding color, to bring and put on the table. And I found something and it spoke to me. And it said to me, I'm your mentor. I'm your mentor. And it's something that had been given to me by my husband, who's no longer with us. And I looked at it and I just said, oh my God, will you look at that? It's an orange elephant with red socks.
No, no. I was going to facetiously ask you if you ever saw an elephant with red socks. There he is. Right.
That is orange. That is orange.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's amazing. It is amazing. But
well,
my point is, that's how amazing it is when you listen to your inner voice. That's how powerful the energy is. That's how directed and purposeful it is. If you want to get on purpose, get connected with your inner voice. It will take you where you need to be with your inner voice. Can I leave you with that?
yes, you can. And I am thrilled. Okay, folks. Now, this has been wonderful, right? And I'm sure that you enjoyed our other speakers on the Achieve Your Dream Summit. But I do want you to be able to listen to Miss Norma again. And you know how to do that. You already know. That's by upgrading to the VIP level. Okay? All right. I don't know what it's going to be. I think it's going to be $47. Come on now. That's a drop in the bucket. Then you can listen to Miss Norma. You can get everything that you need from her, because she just covered, I don't know, several hundred years of knowledge and wisdom in this interview. So take care. Just be aware that there is that still small voice. There is that leading. There is that guidance. That guidance is always with you. You can call that guidance whatever you want to call that guidance. But when you give in, when you submit, that's guidance that will take you where you need to go, and it'll take away the confusion and the cobwebs. So until next time, thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure, Rick. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.